What if Dragapult was in Gen 1 OU? Now, I'm pretty sure when I first started this series, Dragapult was one of the first ones I thought about. Because one of the first things I thought about when making this series was, what if there was a ghost type that wasn't weak to both ground and psychic? And obviously, Dragapult, has that, plus way more. It has the dragon type, so it also has, the elemental resistances, which is already a pretty big deal. Which is another thing. It's also going to be, a dragon type that can actually use its dragon typing. Because, let's be real, when it comes to Dragonite, a dragon flying type, flying is probably the worst type you can possibly give a dragon type. Because then you're just losing your electric, resistance, and you have a quad weakness to, ice, which is, very ungood, one might say. And also, since it's not like a huge deal, I also gave Dragapult, Dragon Darts, which, won't be a big deal. But, like, the fact that Dragapult also gets Dragon Stab is also pretty nice. And yeah, like, just typing alone, I would imagine this two would be just amazing. But you also have amazing base stats too. 120 attack is pretty high for the time. And 100 special attack is, very good too. It was also pretty high. But that speed. Oh my gosh, that speed. So, someone corrected me, like I think it was last week. Because for the longest time, I thought Electrode always had 150 speed. But no, that was a buff he got in Gen 7. In Generation 1, he had 140. Which means that Dragapult is now the fastest Pokemon in Gen 1 OU. Now granted, he's only 2, speed points faster than Electrode. So his crit rate can't be that much higher, but still pretty good. Like, what does he have? Like, just have, a 25% chance, basically? Like, give or take, of, critting? That's a pretty big deal. And it kind of means that even though he does have the most reliable stab in the world, he can still hit pretty hard. It's a real shame, though. Because, not that his moveset is bad. It is good he has Dragon Stab. But, man, it is so unfortunate that he doesn't have a Dragon Stab. Because imagine, or not Dragon, I mean Ghost. Because imagine there was, literally any Ghost move in Generation 1 other than Lick. With that 120 attack, Dragapult would be in heaven. But speaking of his moveset, as you can imagine, it's actually really good, even for Gen 1 standards. Now, starting off with, there's Agility, which might seem pretty pointless, but I feel like Agility has two main uses. The first one would be to use it on, just mainly so you can outspeed the enemy Dragapult. Because let's be honest, this dude is going to be OU, there's no question about it. But the other thing could be just to try to counteract, the meta. And by that I mean, with Dragapult going to be around, paralysis, as you can imagine, is going to be everywhere. Everyone's going to try to paralyze the Dragapults. So that's why I think a good way to counteract that would actually be by using Agility. That way you can, you just offset the paralysis debuff, and you remain the fastest thing in the game. But even if you don't use it, it isn't needed, but I think it's a nice, tech option. Body Slam is always a good move as usual. You got Double Edge. Dragon Darts, I think, is perfectly fine. It's good, all around good consistent damage since it hits twice. But also, unlike in, Generation 8 or 9, the way, multi-hit moves work is, instead of, each individual hit having a chance to crit, it's, it's basically all or nothing. If you don't crit the first one, the second one won't crit. But if you crit with the first one, they both crit. Which, having a crit with Dragon Darts does actually lead to some actually pretty decent, chip damage. It's not I don't know exactly if you would use it. It might be sort of like Gengar's Nightshade. There's good consistent damage. But Dragapult also has enough, elemental coverage where you can use other stuff. You have Flamethrower and Fire Blast. Personally, I think is it pretty good. Especially since you're mostly weak against, ice types. Critical Fire Blast can mess up a lot of stuff. It can also, you can also use it to threaten Eggy, which is always pretty nice. Hydro Pump is a strong move. However, accuracy is too low. And he also learns Surf. So you probably would rather just go for that instead. Because you're mainly using Surf to just, one-shot, Rhydon. Since this dude surprisingly doesn't have any ice coverage. And, yeah, just Surf is enough. It's kill Rhydon. And suffers just like decent, damage on its own, and has a lot of power points. He also has dual screens, which I've seen a lot of people bring up, and like, maybe, personally I think it'd be a little bit of a waste, because unlike in other generations, like screens stay with you and only you. Which, don't get me wrong, Dragapult, it would definitely appreciate not taking less damage, especially and physically. But I feel like you would rather just have as much like damage as possible, as much elemental coverage as possible. Maybe at least like 1 or 2 physical moves. But like, depending on what set you're running, they could definitely be good. Quick attack is useless. Rest is probably useless. Or then again, considering your ghost typing, you're pretty good at pivoting. You're even better with your dragon typing. And you're faster, so I guess you could use Dragapult as like a status blocker as well. As long as you've taken some damage, they take out Eggy, you just, rest, and they can't make, and there's like no Thunder Waves, Stun Spore, Sweet Powders, whatever is like in front of you at the moment. Probably isn't good. That sounds like quite situational, but something to think about. I guess with how fast you are, I guess Substitute is theoretically usable, but probably not. Like I said, Serve, Thunderbolt, which probably gonna be its main attacking move, because like Thunderbolt is pretty useful. And Thunder Wave, I imagine it's gonna be the most popular move just used on it just in general, because it's like the fastest thing in the format, so it pretty much is guaranteed Thunder Waves. As I can imagine, being able to easily pair with something like a Jolteon is a pretty big deal. And you also have Tri Attack, which not as good as not as good as Body Slam, but I do think it's kind of interesting since it has like 20% chance to paralyze, burn, or freeze. I remember being 10%. I'll actually switch to Gen 1 in a little bit just to see if it was 10% back then. But I think it's interesting like tech option. Like instead of like using Body Slam because you already have Thunder Wave anyways, just sacrifice a little bit of power, like lesser chance to like you guys status, to have a chance to have potentially even better status with freeze. There's also burn, which would be pretty bad. So I think overall Body Slam would be better, definitely more consistent. But I do think it's an interesting idea, but you never know. It could be good. Confuse Ray, you're already super fast. It wouldn't you're wasting your time to use it, but it's definitely funny. Hyper Beam, to no one's surprise, is pretty good, especially with how fast your crit rate is. And Swift is there if you are really scared of Jolt and use a stand attack or something. So yeah, that was a lot of moves I went over. Because that's a lot, because it's Dragapult. It's one of the best things about it. Well, let me just check this though. I could have sworn it was 10%. Tri Attack. Wait, Tri Attack had no additional effect in Gen 1? Okay, if that's the case, then sorry for wasting your time. But yeah, no doubt about it. Dragapult is easily, easily using Body Slam. Oh, that's unfortunate. But speaking of which, that actually is one of the things that Dragapult does kind of suffer from here, that it also suffers in Generation 8 and 9. The fact that even though its special attack is good, it mostly wants to be a physical attacker, but it has nothing really. It only really has Body Slam and Hyper Beam as usable physical moves. So interesting that even when you go all the way far back here, it suffers from that. Funny enough, if this was in Generation 2 instead, that would not be the case, because this 2 would have an insanely powerful Shadow Ball, physical Shadow Ball, and I don't need to tell you how broken that would actually be. But other than that, some other weaknesses you would have is obviously, there's still the huge ice weakness. Most of the Sinnoh legendaries I've gone over had to suffer with that. Garchomp and Salmon has to suffer from that. Landorus might not be a Sinnoh legendary, but he has to suffer from Blizzard. It's very common with Jinx and Tauros, Cloyster, etc. Also, while Dragon Darts is stab, technically, it doesn't hit that hard, especially not without a crit. And with Thunderbolt, Fire Blast, and whatnot, they do decent damage, but it's not stab. You need a crit in order to be super super threatening. But then again, this dude's obviously going to be a Waking Cleaner in the first place, so it probably doesn't matter that much. But how does it fare against the other Pokemon in Gen 1 OU? Only one way to find out. We always gotta start with the boy, Tauros. And, I don't know why it's sort of lacking, but either way, Blizzard does like half health, which, yeah, that's really unfortunate. But on the bright side, as you see there, crits, like, just a critical, Surf did half damage to Tauros, which, like, it's honestly what I would have expected. I couldn't tell you if, like, Dragon Darts would have done more or not, but it's definitely, like, yeah, it's definitely, well, you can see there, like, how much was that? Like, it's like I said, it's decent chip damage, but I don't know. I'm not entirely sure if it's completely worth it. Hyper Beam probably is worth it, because granted, if it doesn't crit, you don't kill, you probably die. But a critical Hyper Beam for 120 attack is, like, that's definitely nothing to sneeze at. Also, I'll just quickly say this here when it comes to the actual Snorlax matchup. If it's just, like, you know, physical Snorlax, normal with an Earthquake, it's like a free win, even if you have, like, Reflect. But obviously, Amnesia Lax is a much different story. And then with Chansey, you can hit it physically, and it does 30%. Which, yeah, you wish it would do more. Especially when, you know, freaking Ice Beam, you know, shoe shots you. Hyper Beam doesn't have your health, which that's nice. But yeah, you can only hurt Chansey with just Hyper Beam. And I don't even think Hyper Beam is like a mainstay move on Dragapult. Although I guess this is one nice thing with Dragapult, because depending on what moveset it has, it can like threaten almost everything in the game. And you never know what it's gonna have until it reveals all of its moves. Which that actually is pretty handy. And Body Slam, especially a crit, does a lot to Alakazam. Meanwhile, Psychic is like a 3-hit KO. So, like, don't get me wrong, Alakazam can definitely get lucky and kill you. But for the most part, it's a pretty good matchup. And then meanwhile, with Cloyster, you like both, like, they're 2-hit KOs. Critical hits kill both of you. But you have a much faster chance of just getting a crit. You're just faster in general, so cool either way, but it's ever so slightly in your favor, I would say. Although with Red HP, you're not really like ending as a winner. But also then again, you're the fastest thing in the game, so you're gonna get an extra turn either way. And then with Executor, a Fire Blast brings Executor down to like 25%, assuming it's a crit. But if it's not a crit, like, it does about like a third. So not that bad, like, to be honest. Granted, with like Dragon Darts, Surf, or Thunderbolt, you just can't touch it. And Body Slam, like, if Body Slam only did 30% to Chansey, what do you think it's gonna do like Executor? But also, I feel like this one, I was also curious to see how much Light Screen would do. So I make this little like weird like vacuum scenario where Dragapult gets like a Thunder Wave and a Light Screen off. And honestly, looking at it now, like, now that I think about it, maybe, oh yeah, there was a misclick there, don't judge me. But I'm starting to think that maybe, Executor might need to be put in bad matchups. Because stuff like Special Drops is still a thing, Executor can still crit, and Sleep is just like, it's just a death sentence. Even with Light Screen, look how much, like, Executor's doing to it. And also, even like a third, like Fire Blast doesn't even guarantee third. You see there, right? That's just like not even like 30%. So yeah, I think I put in Cuckoo either way, but I think Executor just gonna be put in the bad matchups. Sorry, Dragapult. And then with Gengar, what does Dragapult really do? Because Gengar has a much higher special. So he can just pretty much, like, yeah, Dragapult can paralyze Gengar, which is definitely really good, but doesn't have many ways to hurt Gengar, because again, there's like no ghost moves. And I doubt you're going to use Lick, or you don't even learn Lick, so it doesn't even matter. And even though Gengar isn't as fast as you, he's still pretty fast, he can still crit a lot. So, yeah, I guess it sucks, but this is not much you can really do there. which that's probably the matchup that surprised me the most, but I'm not sure why. It probably shouldn't have surprised me looking back at it. And then Jolteon, you know, you guys can paralyze each other, which, like, Dragapult, if it does have agility, really is annoyed by that. But it's, you know, other than that, it's a pretty easy matchup. Jolteon can't really hurt you. You just don't care about double kick because you're immune to it. And then you just resist Thunderbolt. Even if it's a crit, it's not even like the worst thing in the world. So, yeah, like, it's a pretty, it can like help you with, like, you know, like, it's nice having a way electric resistance other than, Executor. I wish I had much more to say, but I usually don't have much to say with just the Jolteon matchups. The Jolteon matchups, it's either Jolteon one-shots you with a crit or it doesn't. So that's a shame. But, at the very least, like, you know, like, always, oh boy, I forgot about this one. So, a critical Fire Blast, it does kill Jinx, and that's nice, but you don't always crit. You don't always crit, and sometimes it can be pretty bad for you. Because Jinx has a Stab Blizzard. And also, that's another problem. Fire Blast is sort of inaccurate. So, yeah, it does about as much as Cloyster's Blizzard did. Yeah, it's not much you can really do there. It's sad. It's really sad. Because I hate it when Jinx has good matchups in Gen 1. But what do? There's not much you can really do there. Also, I do apologize. The computer's been slower than usual for whatever reason. But also against Rhydon, it's a free kill if you have Surf. So, even if you don't have Surf, I think just the threat of it means that, you know, if you have a Rhydon and they take out Dragapult, you just have to switch. You have no choice in the matter. Which, obviously, that's huge. Just having the threat of it being enough to, like you know, change that combo game. And then with Slowbro, it might not be an electric type, but it's basically the same thing, where it's super fast and crits. It does not matter if Slowbro uses Thunder Wave. It doesn't matter if Slowbro gets Amnesias up. You know, the Dragonapult can just kill it. And even if you do get Amnesias up, you just have Surf, which Dragapult resists. So yeah, it's a pretty great matchup, all things considered. So maybe I take back what I said earlier about Dragapult like not hitting as hard as it would if it had Stab. It actually seems like Dragapult's already doing it's doing alright for itself. And then against Starmie, you can paralyze each other, but since you're faster, sometimes you just get lucky. You can basically two-shot it with or technically a 3-shot, but I imagine it's probably a damage range. Either way, you like being faster definitely like helps you so much there. If it weren't for you being faster, Starmie would just get a free KO, especially with Thunder Wave and Recover. But also having Thunder Wave is also just huge there. And like even though you're faster, you kind of need Thunder Wave, just because of how common Thunder Wave is in of itself is common in Gen 1. And if you don't use like Thunder Wave for whatever reason, definitely use Agility. But yeah, even then, like Agility again is still probably just like a nice tech move, like to throw people off guard, not a main move. I'm not even sure if like other than like maybe like Thunderbolt, but like other than Thunder Wave, I just can't think of any moves that you're going to see in Dragapult 100% of the time. But I think that's what makes Dragapult so good. And last but not least, you got Zapdos. They can paralyze you back, and then it's just a matter of who gets like the better paralysis luck. In this case, as you see, Zapdos is getting pretty lucky, but also that's not much a critical like Dragon Darts does. It like two-shot Zapdos. Zapdos has pretty high HP, so I think it's safe to assume that a critical Dragon Darts can just, for the most part, basically two-shot everything. So that's pretty good. Like, not as good as Zapdos is being able to win that, but yeah. The matchup with Zapdos could go either way, and I'm still very unsure about how good Dragon Darts would be. Although I do regret not making a replay, having it use it against Dragonite. But here's the list. Nothing unwinnable. Definitely not anything unwinnable. But this I actually think I'm going to put in bad matchups. Even though it has like, even our critical Fire Blast can do very good. But yeah, here's the list. Nothing unwinnable, like I just said. You have really great matches with Rhydon and Slowbro, and those are some of the tankiest mons in the tier, so having a free matchup against those is incredibly huge. Good matchups against Alakazam and Jolteon, and with everything that could go either way, that's just like if like they're both at a full HP. You're most likely using like Dragapult as a late game cleaner, so like Dragapult does exponentially better against literally everything here. Because Dragapult does have everything that can threaten everything here. From like physical, like a body slam, critical hyper beams. I think you just have like almost all the ammo coverage you could ever want. Obviously, like Dragapult would kill for bulk beam coverage. But also argue that bulk beam coverage might make it a little too good, So I think Dragapult, I think it's pretty good with what it has. It would definitely be good. 100% OU. Would it be better than Gengar? Kind of hard to say, because even though they're both ghost types, they do very different things, with Gengar having Hypnosis and Explosion. But yeah, easily good alternative. Might even be an argument for using both of them on the same team. Who knows? But what do you think? Would Dragapult be good? Do you think it would be better or worse than Gengar? And do you think Dragon Dart would be a good move? Or do you think stuff like Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, and Surf would almost always be better? Strangely enough, I don't have as much else to say for this one. Like, this is a pseudo-legendary that has been requested a little bit. And I thought it was going to be a bit more broken than it actually was. Not gonna lie. But, it's fine. Because even though I don't think it wasn't that as broken here as I thought it would have been, if it was in Gen 2, it would probably be Ubers. Alright, that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to comment any other videos you'd like to see. I'm always, like, picking up your suggestions. My name is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.